To play devil's advocate, if you're Tony Khan and you're trying to get a television deal for Ring of Honor, you're trying to revive this promotion, you're trying to not let it die and bring it back, you're trying to just keep it going until you can get something on the air, and you're trying, and he's admitted it. He's talked to executives at Warner Brothers Discovery. Does that make putting the title on Chris Jericho a smart move? If you're trying to get a television deal for this brand with Chris Jericho as the world champion, Chris Jericho who loves publicity, Chris Jericho who will do an interview with anyone, Chris Jericho who will just always be out there, Chris Jericho, a name that a network executive may know. Does that make putting the belt on him a good idea?
No, because Jericho is still 50 years old and ain't going to have a Ring of Honor match. The same things could be said for putting the Ring of Honor title on Bryan fucking Danielson. And then you would have an actual Ring of Honor wrestler who went on to achieve great heights in the WWE, and everybody's universally respected and everybody knows who he is. And he can work the style still to this day because he's smart and talented. And every existing Ring of Honor fan would accept that. And every AEW fan who maybe had not even ever seen Ring of Honor or gave a shit about it would go, okay, Bryan Danielson, all right, this is going to go somewhere. That would solve the problem of a name that a TV executive would know that has been used even more prominently in the biggest promotion in the world than Chris Jericho more recently. So I understand want to put a name or want to put the belt on a name, not that name, because he don't fit.
You bring up the Ring of Honor fan. What is the Ring of Honor fan now? Because the Ring of Honor fan, when they first started up, obviously changed a little bit by the time you got there full time. And then that fan changed a little bit by the time the Young Bucks were running shit. And then that fan had to have changed a little bit after that because everything changed when all that talent left. Who is the modern Ring of Honor fan? And is it even the same fan that was there in 2002?
I don't know. With over the last few years, and there's not just a specific Ring of Honor fan that doesn't watch any other wrestling besides Ring of Honor. However, at least at one point, I know because I was privy to the numbers in the early 2000 teens, just adding up all the syndicated television that Ring of Honor had, you had between 500,000 and 1 million people watching the show on some station somewhere in this country at some time in the course of a week. And yes, most of them watched other wrestling programs, but the reason why they were watching Ring of Honor and the reason why especially the New York and Toronto and Chicago crowds that came in decent numbers and paid for the time, decent ticket prices, they wanted to see the best independent guys. They wanted to see, at the time, either TNA or WWF had pretty much all of the major talent and name talent locked up. But here were these guys that were the best on the indies, the Samoa Joes, the Davey Richards, Eddie Edwards, Roderick Strong, Jay Lethal, Briscoes, on, Chris Hero, Claudio at the time. And we can go on. And they were having great athletic, hard-hitting matches. They were doing all the big moves, but there was an element of professionalism to it that when we tried to insist on the guys not fucking hurt themselves whenever possible. And that's what that fan base wanted to see. And they can get that out of Danielson. They ain't going to get that out of Jericho. And if you have bought the company and you're putting it on your television and you want to try to make something out of it that's in any way different than what you're already doing, if it's not going to be different than AEW, then why is he fucking doing it? Just concentrate on AEW. But if you wanted to preserve the legacy of the promotion, get that 500,000 fans or whatever the fuck it is, or just have a different style of wrestling presented where you can have some of the guys that might not fit in AEW, maybe they would fit in Ring of Honor or vice versa. It's got to be some difference. So why are you going through all this if you're not going to follow through with that? It doesn't make sense. He's just collecting belts, collecting promotions. Nothing wrong with collecting video libraries. But putting all of these belts and all these new titles and new champions on their existing show when they got too many to begin with, and then just make Ring of Honor a promotion with the same people in it that are in AEW, what the fuck?
It's not the same people. It's some of the same people, and then the people who Tony still has under contract, but he doesn't really want in his locker room, like Cole Cabana and Brian Cage.
Well, there you go. So, cast-offs, wannabes, misfits, gypsies, tramps, and thieves, whatever.